The lipstick on Adrian's collar was not pink like an innocent kiss on the cheek, nor the faded coral of an old friend's embrace, but crimson, sharp and dangerous, the color of betrayal itself. Isabella Carter stood in the doorway of their penthouse bedroom, frozen in place as she watched her husband knot his silk tie in the mirror. The morning sun poured across the marble floor, gilding his tall figure, reflecting off the glass walls, and still he did not notice her. Or maybe he did, and simply no longer cared. Her eyes were fixed on that smear of red, a wound blooming against the pristine white of his shirt. She pressed her hand to the doorframe, steadying herself, though her voice, when it came, was calm and honeyed, as if betrayal were something she could swallow whole. "Adrian, there's lipstick on your collar." He did not flinch, did not even pause. His reflection in the mirror remained composed, his jaw tight, his eyes cool and unbothered, steel gray like winter storm clouds. He gave a dismissive tug to his cufflinks, the platinum ones she had gifted him on their first anniversary, and said, "Probably nothing, Isabella. Some woman at the gala must have brushed too close. People talk, they laugh. Accidents happen." Accidents, she thought. Her heart pounded, but her lips curved in a slow smile that would have fooled anyone else. The crimson mark was no accident, no careless trace of some socialite's greeting. She could smell perfume on him, a fragrance that was not hers. Jasmine, rich and heady, clinging to his jacket like a shadow he had carried home. She stepped into the room, her silk robe whispering against her skin as she approached him. She reached up, fingertips brushing the stained fabric. She expected him to pull back with guilt, but he stiffened with something worse, revulsion, as if her touch burned. She wiped at the mark with a tissue, her voice still so FT, though her knuckles trembled. "There, gone. Can't have the great Adrian Blackwood walking into the office less than perfect." His eyes flicked to hers in the mirror, cold and unyielding, before he shrugged away from her touch. "Revolting," he muttered, not at the lipstick but at her. Once he would have kissed her fingers just for touching his face. Once he would have pulled her against him and promised her the world. Now he acted as though she were nothing but an inconvenience. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 8, its chime echoing through the vast penthouse like a countdown. He grabbed his jacket and checked his watch. A rare Patek Philippe, another gift from her, though he wore it now as if it were only a badge of wealth and not of love. He moved toward the door, pausing only to say, "Try not to embarrass me at the dinner tonight, Isabella. Investors want to hear about the future, not the ramblings of someone who doesn't understand their world." Her breath caught in her throat, but she did not let the mask slip. She only smiled faintly and said, "Of course, darling. I'll be perfect." When the door shut behind him, silence filled the room like smoke. Her eyes drifted to the nightstand drawer, to the envelope hidden beneath velvet scarves. Inside were photographs she had gathered quietly over the past month. Adrian with the same woman, always at odd hours, always too close, her red lipstick a brand marking his collar, his soul. She had not shown them to anyone, not yet. She opened the drawer now, let her fingers brush the glossy surface of the top photo. Her pulse steadied as she slid the evidence back into place. She would not confront him yet. She would wait. She would plan. She would strike when it mattered most. In that moment, Isabella Carter ceased being the devoted wife. She became something else entirely, a strategist, a woman with a weapon. The lipstick was not just betrayal, it was the beginning of her war. The rain had not stopped all night, and Isabella watched it slide down the tall glass windows of the Blackwood penthouse like silver tears falling from the sky. She sat alone at the dining table, untouched breakfast cooling in front of her while the city below pulsed with the sound of horns and hurried footsteps. Her phone buzzed on the marble surface, a message from Sophie, her oldest friend. "Meet me at the Carlton at noon." "You sound like you need it." Isabella traced the rim of her coffee cup, her mind slipping back to a memory that felt like a lifetime ago. It was 2 years earlier when Adrian Blackwood had stood outside her apartment at 3 in the morning in that same kind of rain. He had been soaked through expensive suit, ruined roses clutched in his hand, and his voice hoarse as he shouted her name. "I will tear down the stars for you, Isabella," he had promised. "I will make the world kneel if that is what it takes to keep you." Back then she believed him. Back then she thought passion was truth and power could be love. Now she sat staring at the lipstick stain burned into her mind and wondered if all of it had been a performance carefully rehearsed for a woman naive enough to believe a billionaire could be faithful. By noon, she was at the Carlton. Her black dress, simple but sharp armor for the battlefield. She walked every day. Sophie was already waiting. Her eyes sharp as ever. She leaned in the moment. Isabella sat down. "Tell me why you look like a ghost." Isabella let out a soft laugh, though her throat ached. "I found lipstick on his collar this morning. Not mine, crimson." And he brushed it away as if I were foolish to notice. Sophie's eyes narrowed. "That man is either too confident or too careless. Maybe both. You need to decide, Isa. Are you going to let him bury you in silence, or are you going to rise?" Isabella reached into her purse, pulled out a second phone. One Sophie had never seen before. She could explain. She slid it across the table. On it were photos, receipts, emails. Every lie Adrian thought was hidden. The color drained from Sophie's face. "You have been building a case. He thinks I am blind." Isabella said, her voice calm but her eyes burning. "But I see everything. He thinks he is playing chess while I am fumbling with checkers. What he does not know is that I have already captured his queen." Sophie reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Be careful, Isa. He is not just a husband. He is Adrian Blackwood. He has power connections, lawyers who would bury you in a heartbeat. That is why I am not going to fight him directly." Isabella whispered, "I am going to let him set his own trap. He is too arrogant to see the strings tightening." Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down and froze. A new message. Unknown number. "Meet me tonight, Ritz-Carlton, room 612. It is about Adrian." Sophie read the text over her shoulder. "Who?" Isabella's pulse raced, but her lips curved into a cold smile. "Whoever it is, they just moved the next piece on the board. And I am ready to play." She slipped the phone back into her purse, eyes glinting with fire. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, the storm not gone, only waiting. Just like her. The game had begun, and Adrian Blackwood had no idea that his greatest mistake was underestimating the woman he thought he had broken. The elevator ride to the Ritz felt endless. Isabella's reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls, calm on the surface yet pulsing with storms beneath. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she stepped out, heart racing with each step toward room 612. She had no idea who she would find inside, only that someone had invited her into the shadows of her husband's life. The door opened before she could knock. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered with sharp features. His eyes darted nervously as he pulled her inside, shutting the door quickly. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I was hired to follow you." Isabella froze, the room spinning around her. "Who hired you?" she demanded, though she already knew the answer. "Adrian Blackwood." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He wanted me to be seen with you in public, coffee shops, gyms, restaurants. He gave me scripts on how to act familiar, close, romantic enough to spark rumors." He pushed a thick envelope across the table. Inside were photographs of her walking to her car. Daniel a step behind. Photographs of her at the bookstore, a coffee shop, a dinner out. Every angle staged to look like an affair. Her name scribbled across forged love letters. Her handwriting copied perfectly. My stomach churned. Isabella whispered, "He wants to frame me." Daniel's eyes softened. "I didn't know who you were at first. They told me you were a gold digger, that you trapped him, but I checked for myself. I learned about your degree, your work, your charity foundation. You're not the villain here," he sighed. "I couldn't go through with it." Isabella's hands trembled as she closed the envelope, rage and clarity crashing over her. Adrian had not only betrayed her, he had plotted to destroy her with precision. He wanted to erase her, leave her with nothing and still walk away untarnished. Daniel leaned closer. "There's more. The woman everyone thinks is his mistress, Elena. She is not who she says. Cease." "He is." I recognized her face years ago. She was an actress, small roles, commercials, nothing serious. I don't know who she works for now, but she isn't Elena Morrow from Wharton. He slid another photo across the table, a headshot from a casting site 5 years old. Isabella stared at it, the resemblance undeniable. Adrian's so-called mistress was a fabrication, a performance designed for him. Isabella's pulse pounded in her ears. The pieces of the puzzle twisted into something darker. Adrian was not only willing to frame her, he was already being deceived himself by someone in his circle, someone with resources enough to build an entire identity. Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking the silence. A message from Sophie. "Are you safe?" "Isa, something in your tone earlier scared me. Please answer." She typed back. "I am safe, but the truth is not." Daniel touched her hand urgently. "You have to be careful if Adrian learns. I told you any of this. He will destroy me too." "Why are you risking this?" Isabella asked quietly. "Because my mother was once used the same way. A rich man wanted an heir and left her broken. I won't be part of doing that to another woman." Isabella slipped the envelope into her bag, standing tall despite the storm raging inside her. "Thank you, Daniel. But if Adrian Blackwood thinks he can bury me with lies, he has underestimated me gravely." She stepped into the hall, her heels striking like gunshots. The penthouse would not know it yet, but the war had shifted. The billionaire thought he was pulling the strings, but Isabella had just found his weakness, and she was ready to cut through every thread. The ambassador's gala was a theater of diamonds and deception chandeliers glittering overhead, while the city's elite paraded in gowns and tuxedos, pretending their secrets were not stitched into every seam. Isabella entered on Adrian's arm, her face a perfect mask of devotion, while her heart burned with the weight of the envelope hidden in her clutch. Every smile she offered was a weapon, every step across the marble floor a calculated move on the chessboard of their marriage. Adrian leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. "Dance with me, Isabella," he whispered, and for a moment the sound almost pulled her back to the days when his touch had been salvation, not shackles. But she remembered the staged photographs, the forged letters the actor hired to ruin her name. She placed her hand in his anyway, because 200 watchful eyes demanded the performance continue. The orchestra swelled with La Vie en Rose, the same song they had danced to at their wedding. Adrian's hand found her waist, guiding her with practiced ease. His gaze was intense, steel gray eyes glimmering with something that looked like longing, or maybe just desperation. "You look beautiful tonight," he murmured, as if the words could erase months of silence. Isabella kept her smile, but her voice was sharp as glass. "Beautiful enough to keep your investors happy." She spun gracefully, her gown sweeping the floor. Every camera flash captured the picture of a flawless couple, while underneath the music her mind replayed Daniel's warning. "Adrian wants to frame you. He wants you destroyed." When Adrian pulled her close again, his grip was firmer, his voice lower. "I've been a fool, Isabella. You are everything I ever wanted." The crowd thought they were watching a husband beg forgiveness, but Isabella heard only strategy. A public reconciliation followed by a planned betrayal. He was weaving the story for them all, and she was expected to play the role of loyal wife. Across the ballroom, Isabella spotted her. The woman Adrian claimed was Elena Morrow, smiling too brightly, her hand brushing Adrian's mother, Evelyn, as if they shared a secret. Evelyn's eyes cut toward Isabella, cold and triumphant, as though the outcome of this night was already decided. But Isabella's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with power. She knew the truth now. Elena was an actress, a role bought and paid for. Their empire was balancing on lies, and she had proof. A voice cut through the music. Gideon, Adrian's younger brother. He appeared at the edge of the dance floor, his glass of whiskey untouched, his eyes on Isabella. He leaned close as they circled past him. "Your husband is planning something tonight," Gideon said softly. "Be careful." Isabella let Adrian spin her again, masking the chill that ran down her spine. "What kind of plan?" she asked, her lips barely moving. Gideon's expression was unreadable. "Ask yourself why Evelyn insisted on this gala." He lifted his glass in a mock toast and disappeared back into the crowd. Adrian dipped her suddenly. The crowd applauded and gasped as though love itself had bloomed again under the chandeliers. His lips brushed her ear. "Come home with me tonight, Isabella. Let me prove I can change." For a heartbeat, her heart cracked open, but then she remembered the forged letters, the lies, the mistress who was not who she seemed. She remembered the photographs in her drawer waiting like loaded bullets. When the music ended, the applause echoed, but Isabella stepped back, her hand slipping from Adrian's grasp. "I'm tired," she said softly, but her eyes glittered with fire. Tonight was not reconciliation. Tonight was revelation. She left him standing in the middle of the dance floor, the crowd whispering in delight at a performance they thought was love, unaware they had just witnessed the opening move of her revenge. The morning light crept through the curtains of Isabella's room, but it brought no warmth, only the echo of last night's performance at the gala. The papers were already buzzing with photographs of her and Adrian twirling beneath the chandeliers, their smiles flawless, their chemistry undeniable. The world believed they were still in love, but Isabella knew the truth. Love had been buried beneath layers of lies. Now all that remained was strategy. A knock on her bedroom door broke the silence. Adrian entered without waiting. His suit was sharp, his tie perfectly knotted, his presence as suffocating as ever. He closed the door behind him and said flatly, "It is time, Isabella, time for what she asked," her tone calm, though her pulse quickened. He stepped closer, eyes hard and unyielding. "Time for you to do what this marriage was built for. It is time you gave me an heir." The words landed like shards of ice. Isabella set her coffee cup down carefully so her hands would not betray her tremor. "An heir," she repeated softly. "And you suddenly remember your duty as a husband after 9 months of silence." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This is not about us. It is about the family, about the empire. The board is asking questions. My mother is losing patience. A Blackwood marriage without a child is weakness. Do you want me to look weak?" She stood slowly, moving to the vanity so he could not see her eyes blaze. "How romantic should I schedule the conception between your business lunches and your nights at the Four Seasons?" His silence told her she had struck true. He did not deny it. He only said coldly, "You are still my wife." "On paper," she said sharply. "That is all." The tension between them cracked like a storm ready to break, but before either could move, a voice came from the hall. "Adrian, your mother and Miss Morrow are waiting in the formal room." It was Amelia, his secretary loyal to the family, not to Isabella. The mention of Miss Mott. Rowe tightened Isabella's chest. Elena was here again, summoned like a queen in her own home. Together they walked into the grand living room. Evelyn sat at the head of the long mahogany table, her posture regale, her eyes knives. At her side, Elena leaned back in her chair, lips curved into a smile that mocked Isabella's very existence. Leonard, the family lawyer, shuffled papers before him. "This meeting is about succession," Evelyn began. "Adrian needs an heir. The family requires assurance." Isabella took her seat opposite them, her face calm, though her heart thundered. "So that is why the mistress is invited to family council. Now," she tilted her head toward Elena, "is she here to advise on breeding potential?" Evelyn's lips pursed sharply. "Enough of your theatrics. You knew what this marriage entailed. The Blackwood name comes with responsibilities." Leonard cleared his throat. "If the marriage fails to produce an heir within 2 years, the prenup allows for annulment with limited compensation, and if there is evidence of infidelity on the wife's part, compensation is 0. Elena's smile widened as if she already tasted victory. Isabella met her gaze unflinching. "Then you plan to frame me?" The silence was answer enough. Isabella stood smoothing her robe and let her voice cut through the room very well. "Then I will give you your heir, but under my conditions." Adrian looked startled. "Conditions first. You return to our bedroom. If you want a child, you will at least pretend to be my husband. Second, Miss Morrow is no longer welcome in this home or at any family dinners. She is business only. And third, when I give birth, the child will carry my name too. Blackwood Carter. Non-negotiable." Evelyn's face went white with fury. "Absolutely not," she snapped. "Then I suppose you will have no heir," Isabella said calmly. "Your choice." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "I want it in writing. Leonard, draw up the papers, 24-hour. It's Adrian or I walk. And if I walk, the world will learn the truth about the lipstick, the hotels, the woman who does not even exist." Her gaze flicked to Elena, who stiffened under the weight of exposure. Isabella swept from the room, her pulse racing, but her smile sharp. She texted Sophie 3 words. "The war begins." The cafe was quiet enough to hear the hum of the old refrigerator yet. Isabella's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might shatter the stillness. She sat across from Daniel, the actor Adrian had hired to frame her, his face lined with guilt. He slid a thick manila envelope across the marble table. Everything you need is in there. Contracts, instructions, staged, photographs, letters forged in your handwriting. They were planning to bury you. Isabella? She opened the file and each page felt like a blade slicing through the last threads of her patience. Photographs of her standing near Daniel cropped to look intimate. A fake timeline of a supposed affair, even emails drafted to look like confessions. The work was precise, meticulous, a trap designed to crush her in the court of law and in the court of society. Adrian Blackwood was not just betraying her. He was plotting her annihilation. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. I could not go through with it. My mother was once treated the same way, used by a man of wealth, left with nothing. I will not be part of repeating that history. Isabella closed the envelope slowly, her mind sharper than ever. Adrian thinks he is untouchable. She whispered more to herself than to Daniel. But men who think they are gods always fall harder. Daniel hesitated, then reached into his jacket, pulling out another folder. This is about the woman you know as Elena Morrow. Look closely. Isabella took the folder and her eyes widened. Headshots, casting calls, old contracts. The so-called heiress of Morrow International was nothing more than an actress from Montreal with a new name and a rewritten past, a mask bought and worn to perfection. Why would Adrian's empire trust someone so fabricated? She asked. Daniel shook his head. Because he wanted to believe it. He wanted the merge, or her story, her beauty, her lies. It gave him power, and men like him never question what feeds their ego. Her phone buzzed in her purse, breaking the silence. Gideon's name flashed across the screen. Adrian's younger brother, the one with eyes too watchful for his own good. She answered carefully. Gideon, what is it? Meet me at the Carlton bar in 1 hour, he said, his tone clipped urgent. It is about Adrian and Elena. You need to know the truth. Before she could ask more, the line went dead. Isabella stared at the phone, the weight of revelation pressing harder. She had proof of Adrian's betrayal, proof of his attempt to frame her, and now whispers that the woman he risked everything for was a lie within a lie. The noose was tightening, but not around her neck, around his. She rose from the table, gathering the envelope and folder. Daniel touched her hand. Be careful, Mrs. Blackwood. The people pulling these strings are more powerful than you realize. Isabella met his gaze, her voice steady. They have underestimated me for the last time. He thought he could strip me of dignity, wealth, and love, but I have something none of them can fight. I have nothing left to lose. She left the cafe, stepping into the drizzle of the city night. Every raindrop felt like a warning, every shadow like a threat. Yet in her chest burned fire stronger than fear. In 1 hour she would face Gideon. In 1 hour the truth behind Adrian's mistress and the conspiracy binding them all would unfold. The war had begun, and Isabella Carter was no longer a pawn, she was becoming the queen. The Carlton bar glowed with golden light against the storm outside, the kind of place where power whispered in hushed tones and secrets changed hands as easily as martinis. Gideon was already there, seated in the darkest corner, his jacket draped carelessly across the chair, but his eyes sharp and restless. Isabella approached steady despite the racing of her pulse. He rose to greet her, and for the first time she noticed how different he was from Adrian, softer in tone, yet carrying the same steel in his gaze. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I nearly didn't, she replied, placing the envelope from Daniel on the table. But then I remembered Adrian tried to erase me, and I don't plan on disappearing. Gideon opened the envelope, his jaw tightening as he skimmed the forged photographs and letters. His voice dropped to a growl. I knew he was reckless, but this is deliberate destruction. Isabella leaned forward. Tell me what you called me here for. Gideon's hands clenched around the documents. Elena Morrow isn't. Elena Morrow. Her real name is Celeste Martin, an actress hired to play the role of a powerful heiress. The merger she promised Adrian was never real. It was a trap designed to bleed this family dry. Isabella's lips curved into a cold smile. I already know, Daniel told me. He slid her the folder with the casting photos. Gideon's eyes widened, then softened with something like respect. You're sharper than any of them realize, but it's worse than just a fake heiress. Celeste wasn't working alone. He pulled out his phone, scrolling until he found an email thread encrypted but traceable. I cracked his laptop. Adrian was coordinating with our mother, Evelyn. She orchestrated the entire scheme with Celeste together. They planned to secure an heir from you, then cut you out completely. Once pregnant, you'd be discarded, framed for infidelity, and the child would become the trophy heir. That sealed their power. Adrian was her pawn, but the strings belonged to Evelyn. The air between them tightened. Isabella's fingers curled against the glass of her untouched drink. Evelyn's hand in all of this, I should have known. Adrian never had the courage to betray me so completely without help. Gideon's expression darkened. That woman has destroyed everyone she touched. She made Adrian into a machine. She tried to mold me into her puppet, and she will not stop until she controls you too. Isabella exhaled, slow, steady. Then we don't let her. Gideon tilted his head. And how do you plan to stop Evelyn Blackwood? She is venom in human form. By beating her at her own game, Isabella whispered, already forming the plan in her mind. She wants an heir. Then I'll make sure the world sees the Blackwood legacy tainted by her lies. She wants to bury me in scandal. Then I'll bury her with truth. Gideon studied her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. You're dangerous, he said finally. A dangerous woman is the only kind who survives in this family. Isabella replied, her voice soft but resolute. Outside, thunder rolled the storm, gathering strength as if echoing the war she had just declared. Inside the Carlton bar, two unlikely allies sat across from one another, bound not by trust, but by shared fury. For the first time, Isabella realized this wasn't only about Adrian's betrayal anymore. This was about something larger, older, a dynasty rotting from its core, and she was about to be the one who burned it clean. The Thornton estate loomed against the night sky, its windows glowing like watchful eyes. Isabella stepped out of the car, her heels striking the marble steps with a rhythm that echoed her heartbeat. Inside the house, a storm of its own was waiting. Evelyn had summoned her under the guise of a family dinner, but Isabella knew better. This was not about food, this was about power. The dining room was a theater of control. Evelyn seated at the head of the long, polished table, her pearls gleaming like armor. Adrian beside her, his expression unreadable. Celeste in the shadows sipping wine with the smugness of a cat that believed it had trapped the mouse. Gideon leaned against the far wall, arms folded, his gaze steady on Isabella as though silently reminding her not to flinch. You kept us waiting. Evelyn's voice was smooth but sharp beneath it. Isabella took her seat deliberately, slow, meeting every gaze around the table. You'll forgive me, I was busy uncovering lies. Evelyn's smile did not waver. Lies, dear. You've been hearing too much from Gideon. He has always been jealous of his brother. Adrian finally spoke, his tone low, controlled. You've made quite a spectacle, Isabella. The press is circling the board, is restless. If you care about this family, you'll stop. Evelyn cut in sharply. Enough, Adrian. Isabella knows what is required. She will give this family an heir, or she will leave with nothing. Isabella's fingers traced the rim of her glass, her calm hiding the storm inside. She looked straight at Evelyn. And what if the world discovered that your perfect heir was born of deception, that your chosen partner for Adrian was not an heiress but an actress, paid to play her role? Celeste stiffened her glass, clinking against the table. Evelyn's mask cracked for a fraction of a second. Adrian's eyes flicked toward his mother, confusion sparking but quickly masked. Evelyn leaned back, recovering with a thin smile. Actions are meaningless without proof, and you have none. Isabella's lips curved coldly. Are you so sure? She slid a photograph across the table, one of the casting shots Daniel had given her. Celeste's face clear, undeniable. The room went still. Adrian's jaw tightened, his hand curling into a fist. He turned to Celeste. What is this? Celeste tried to laugh it off. Old modeling work. Nothing more. Gideon stepped forward, his voice like a blade. No, brother. It is the truth. Celeste Martin, failed actress, Montreal. Born. Not Morrow. International royalty. Every word out of her mouth has been a performance. Evelyn's performance. The silence cracked into chaos. Evelyn slammed her palm on the table. Adrian shouted, demanding answers. Celeste's mask slipped, fury spilling from her eyes. Isabella rose slowly, her voice cutting through the noise like thunder. Enough. You wanted me weak, silent, obedient. Instead, I come with evidence, allies, and a resolve sharper than your schemes. Evelyn's gaze burned with venom. You don't know what you've started. Isabella leaned in close, her whisper laced with steel. Oh, I know exactly what I've started. And I am not finished. The storm outside rattled the windows as if the world itself knew a dynasty was beginning to crack from the inside. As Isabella turned to leave, she caught Adrian's eyes. For the first time in months, they held something almost human. Fear not of losing power, but of losing her. And in that fleeting flicker, Isabella saw the first fracture in the man who once betrayed her. The game had shifted, and for the first time it was hers to command. The storm outside had not ended by morning, it only moved inside the Thornton Empire Board. Members crowded into the conference hall, tension crackling like lightning overhead. Adrian sat at the head of the polished table, but his authority no longer filled the room. His eyes were sharp yet restless, darting to Isabella as though her very presence threatened to unravel him. Evelyn sat beside him, pearls gleaming, her voice cold as steel. We are here to restore stability, and that means silence about last night. Isabella entered not with silence, but with fire. Her heels echoed across the marble, her black suit tailored like armor. Every eye turned toward her as she placed a folder on the table. The lies have already reached the papers, she said calmly. The world deserves to know the truth before it is twisted by others. Evelyn's lips curved in a venomous smile. You have no place in this meeting. Dear, Adrian's affairs are not your battlefield. Isabella locked her gaze on Evelyn. This is not about affairs. This is about a dynasty built on fraud. She opened the folder, photographs, documents, contracts, all showing Celeste Martin's false identity. Whispers rose around the table. Board members exchanged looks, the foundation of power cracking beneath them. Celeste stood at the far side of the room, her mask gone, fury replacing charm. She spat across the table. I played the role you wanted, Evelyn. I lied. Stoll smiled for cameras. I destroyed my own name for your game, and now you want to discard me. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Careful, girl. You forget who holds your leash. Celeste laughed, sharp, bitter. Then perhaps I'll burn the leash. Adrian's fist slammed against the table. Enough! His voice thundered through the hall. He turned to Celeste. Tell me the truth. Who hired you? Who orchestrated this? Celeste's gaze shifted to Evelyn, then to Isabella, then back to Adrian. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner. Your mother, Evelyn Blackwood, bought my lies, trained me to seduce you and destroy your wife. The room erupted. Gasps, disbelief. Evelyn rose, fury radiating. She lies. She's desperate. Isabella's voice cut sharp. Then prove it. Evelyn, show them your accounts. Show them the payments you made. Gideon stepped forward, tossing a stack of bank statements across the table. Numbers, transactions coded but undeniable. Evelyn's signature inked on every page. The board murmured louder now, fear and betrayal spreading through them like wildfire. Adrian's face drained of color, his world collapsing before everyone's eyes. Evelyn's voice hissed. You think you've won, Isabella. You think breaking this family apart makes you powerful. Isabella leaned closer, her voice calm, lethal. No, I don't think I've won yet, but you've already lost. Evelyn slammed her glass onto the table, shattering crystal against wood shards, scattering like the empire she once ruled. Adrian turned toward Isabella, his steel gray eyes filled not with arrogance, but with something she had not seen in months, grief raw and unguarded. His lips trembled as if words fought to escape. Finally he whispered, I never wanted this. I never wanted to lose you. Tears glistened in his eyes in front of everyone. The billionaire who had betrayed her was breaking. The board saw it. The family saw it. Isabella saw it too. And though her heart ached with old wounds, her resolve hardened. Betrayal had brought her here. But his tears, his collapse before her made her wonder if revenge was enough, or if something far more dangerous was awakening inside her. The meeting dissolved into chaos, voices rising, alliances shifting. But Isabella stood unmoved, the storm within her stronger than any thunder outside. This was no longer about survival. It was about deciding whether to finish Adrian completely or risk being pulled back into the wreckage of his shattered soul. The Thornton mansion stood silent like a wounded beast, its once gleaming halls now filled with whispers of downfall. Isabella walked through the corridor, her steps steady though, inside her chest, beat like a war drum. The night before had shattered everything, Evelyn's empire exposed, Adrian's mask broken, Celeste gone into hiding with threats of vengeance, the board split into factions hungry for blood or redemption. It was no longer a family, it was a battlefield. In the library, Adrian waited, his posture no longer regal but bent shoulders, heavy eyes rimmed with sleepless regret. He did not rise when she entered. He only looked at her as if she was the last anchor keeping him from drowning. Isabella closed the door, the click echoing like judgment. "You wanted to speak," she said, her tone calm but sharp. Adrian's hands trembled as he held out a small velvet box. Inside was not jewelry, but a key. The key to his private vault. Every account, every record, every secret of Thornton Enterprises. "This is everything," he whispered. "If you want revenge, take it. Destroy me. Take the company, my name, my legacy. It is yours." Isabella's gaze did not leave him. His tears slid down his face, unashamed. Raw. He had once betrayed her without blinking. Now he knelt before her, offering the very empire he had chosen over her heart. Her voice was soft but unwavering. "Why, Adrian? Why now?" "Because last night I saw it in their eyes," he said, his voice breaking. "I saw how they looked at me as if I was nothing but Evelyn's puppet. Celeste's fool, a man who sold his soul. And then I looked at you, and for the first time in months I remembered I once had a soul, and it belonged to you." His words hung heavy, filled with both confession and despair. Isabella's breath caught. She had planned revenge. Meticulously had dreamed of this moment of seeing him broken, powerless, begging. But standing here she felt no triumph, only the sharp ache of choices. She could end him with a single move, or she could gamble on the fragile truth spilling from his eyes. She stepped closer, her hand hovering near his, but not touching. "Revenge was easy," she whispered. "Love, that is terrifying." His gaze lifted, desperate, searching. "And what do you choose? Isabella, what do you choose now?" The silence stretched. The storm outside rumbled, and for a heartbeat it felt as if the entire world waited on her answer. She reached out slowly, closing the vault box in his hands. "Keep it, Adrian. Keep your empire. But understand this. If you betray me again, there will be no tears to save you. I will finish what I started." Relief and pain mingled in his expression. He rose not as the cold, untouchable billionaire, but as a man stripped bare. He took her hand for the first time in months and pressed it against his cheek, his tears dampening her skin. "I will spend the rest of my life proving I deserve this chance." For the first time, Isabella let herself believe he might mean it. The war was not over, the scars would never vanish. But in that moment, surrounded by ruins, they chose something neither Evelyn nor Celeste nor the board could control. They chose each other. The thunder rolled, the lights flickered, and in the shadows of a crumbling dynasty, Isabella Carter and Adrian Blackwood began again, not as queen and king of an empire, but as two broken souls daring to build love out of the ashes of betrayal.